Hello and welcome to Gore and Grapes, where I review horror films and enjoy a glass of wine while I tingle your spine. I'm your host, Carla. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 4. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me today. I am very excited to be discussing a film that was met with a lot of hype, and I understand that we need to be cautious whenever something is met with a lot of hype because I have been disappointed quite recently because I bought into the hype. But nonetheless, rest assured, this is one where the hype made sense, in my opinion. I also want to take a moment to say thank you very much for the reception on my last episode. If you haven't seen it, please go see it or listen to it. Thank you very much. It's been overwhelmingly positive, and I am so excited to keep doing this. And I love what I do. What can I say? Thank you very much. And so moving forward, by reading the title, you know that I will be discussing Late Night with the Devil. I saw this in theaters. I believe it was the midnight screening of it, or it was literally the day after it came out, something like that. But oh my goodness, I hadn't seen anything like it. And I remember leaving the theaters just wide-eyed. And I have so much to say about it. And yeah, why don't we just start with that? But as you all know, before I get started with the review, we do need to introduce today's wine of choice, but we do have a disclaimer to get through. The content provided in this podcast includes references to alcohol and its consumption, but it is essential to emphasize that we do not endorse or encourage the irresponsible or excessive consumption of alcohol. Alcohol should be consumed responsibly and in moderation. It is crucial to be aware of the legal drinking age and adhere to local laws and regulations regarding alcohol consumption. Any alcohol references or depictions in this podcast are purely for entertainment and informational purposes. They should not be taken as a suggestion or endorsement to engage in unsafe or unlawful drinking practices. Please make informed decisions and prioritize your safety and well-being. If you haven't noticed by now, I am sick. I am quite congested. This is the best that I felt the last couple days, so please bear with me and if something doesn't sound right. But moving on, today we have a very special bottle of wine, and that is Casillero del Diablo. I have had this bottle of wine before. I think this one actually in particular, the Cabernet. I decided to go for a Cabernet because they are darker. Not only are they my favorite, but they are darker. They have notes of plum and berry, blackberry, and I really wanted something dark to match the themes of the movie. And because of my personal opinion of the movie, I figured why not pair it with something I already like. And I also got my nails done, so I think the plum look or plum color I think really match overall with what we're going for here. Again, this is a Cabernet, and this is Casillero del Diablo. This is from Chile, 2022. Also, for those of you watching, you'll see this cork right here. It's a skull. It's a gift from somebody I don't remember, but thank you. Winemaker's notes are a smooth Cabernet Sauvignon full of cassis and black cherry flavors, complemented by hints of mocha and dark chocolate. This is best paired with white meats, red meats, pork, and cheeses. But if you're like me, you can pair this with anything and it doesn't matter. Also, let's take a moment to admire this part of the bottle. I love when bottles have something to look at, something else other than just the bottle. My opinion, just from a buyer's perspective, but I think this is a really nice detail, and you can see it from the sides too, the seal or indentation around it. And if you take a look, you can see that it is very dark, very berry-like. It's just insane. But with that being said, cheers. incredibly dark. I don't recommend this for anyone starting out. I think you'd be turned off by wine just in general if you had this first. But for the more seasoned drinkers, I certainly recommend it. And I most certainly agree with the pairing. You can pair this with meat. I don't eat meat, once again, just a reminder. I'm not trying to be those vegan vegetarians that like remind you every 5 seconds, but if you are so inclined, and if you certainly eat meat and whatnot, this is fantastic choice overall. And yeah, it's amazing. I think this is perfect for what we're about to talk about. 10 out of 10. Also, somebody recently asked me if I drink more behind the scenes than what you see on camera when I'm recording. The answer is yes, definitely, absolutely yes. For those of you who don't know what Late Night with the Devil is about, in a desperate attempt to revive his failing TV show, host Jack Delroy presents a Halloween special on the night of Halloween 1977. Jack stirs mayhem by allowing a cult survivor who is allegedly possessed on air to communicate with the demonic spirit that eventually disrupts the podcast. The film was released on March 22nd, 2024 in the US. In Australia, it was released April 11, 2024. It did premiere at the South by Southwest Festival on March 10, 2023, a year prior to its release. You'll notice that my title was say 2024. I'm going off of the release date. I know it was premiered earlier, a year before its release, but I think just for everybody's knowledge, it's definitely 2024. The brothers are Colin, and Cameron Cairns. These are two brothers, if you couldn't guess by now, who work as a duo in all of their film projects. Their debut film was 100 Bloody Acres, released in August 2012, to which was received positively overall and won the Carnet Jove Jury Award, Midnight Extreme category at the Catalan International Film Festival. Their next film was Scare Campaign, which was released in 2016 and was also notably a great film. It did very well and earned a few awards. Not much is known by them. Not that I could find, at least. All that I know is that they also work as editors and producers. The Vic Screen article titled Inside the Minds of Late Night with the Devil conjures Colin and Cameron Cairns, shed some light about the duo and their beginnings plus the making of the film. Another great article is by The Movable Fest titled Colin and Cameron Cairns on Playing Host to the Supernatural and Late Night with the Devil, written by Stephen Saito. There was no budget that I could find, but it's heavily implied that this was a low-budget film overall, just by what I was reading through some comments, interviews with the directors, and other articles. So it's safe to assume low budget. I don't have a concrete number, but it was a hit at the box office, and it garnered $16.8 million. Like I mentioned earlier, the film was received with positive reviews overall, generally speaking. And personally, I've never read or I've never heard of anybody truly disliking this film, but overall it was received quite well. Rotten Tomatoes gives the film a 97%, while IMDb rates it slightly lower with a 7 out of 10. People praise the film for nailing the 70s look paired with a dark and brooding atmosphere that late night TV supports. Also, Destmalch, I'm sorry, I am awful with pronunciation. Destmalchian's stellar performance also was a hit with many. Acting from everyone in the cast as well, an expressive and humorous dialogue, detailed but a well-paced story, and also its horror elements. Some criticisms included an unsatisfying ending and also its overuse of CGI, which we'll talk more about later. There is a controversy that needs to be talked about, and that is the use of AI in the film. The AI that was used in question were from 3 still images quoting the directors, quote, "in conjunction with our amazing graphics and production design team, all of whom worked tirelessly to give this film the 70s aesthetic we had always imagined. We experimented with AI for 3 still images, which we edited further and ultimately appear as very brief interstitials in the film," end quote. I believe the images that they're talking about are the commercial or the title card images. Desmalchian commented on it stating, quote, "So I think Cameron and Colin said it really well, and I stand by what they said, and I completely stand by this movie as a thoroughly original piece of work that so many, many hours went into this incredible artistic craftsmanship to be set in this world. So it's a good conversation to have. It's an important conversation. We've got to have it," end quote. Audience members were quite upset about this because the original screening at the South by Southwest Festival did not have these images. Not to mention that the WAG and the SAG-AFTRA strikes ended not too long before the film's theatrical release, and this was a pressing topic during the strikes. Knowing this, some critics state that the film was made in 2022 before the strikes even happened, and even one critic stated that there's no practical purpose by boycotting a film over this. This was a topic that I have seen a lot of even my friends talk about it on social media, and it was quite disappointing. I think that transparency is really the theme here, or really the thing for me. And so I would also be upset if the original screening didn't have these images and then later for them to be added for its official release. And I'm not putting any words into anybody's mouth, but could this have been intentional? I don't know. I do have some fun facts for you. Desmalchian hosts a show called Grave Conversations, where he and his guests lay inside their own individual caskets while the interview takes place. He teamed up with Titan Casket Company, which I've never used in my career, but I have heard great things about them. Some notable guests are Jamila Jamil, Matthew Lillard, Seth Green, and Flula Borg. The interviews are centered around death and dying, with their guests opening up, speaking about their feelings surrounding these topics. Speaking of Desmalchian, he was actually chosen to be Jack Delroy after the directors read an article that he published about regional TV hosts in Fangoria magazine. Late Night with the Devil was the official debut of Ingrid Torelli, the actress who played Lily in the film, The Cult Survivor. Dr. June Ross Mitchell, the character in the film, states that she has a PhD in parapsychology, and apparently it does exist, and Stanford University actually offers this degree. So if anyone is considering a career change, you know where to go. Well, it turns out that I was wrong, so I certainly saved myself a lawsuit from Stanford University, but it appears that Stanford did historically have research, or did conduct some research in the early 1900s on ESP and parapsychology, but it was never a standalone program or degree that you could get at the university. This was just for research. According to the Parapsychological Association, you are able to take courses and programs, but they are very limited, but they do exist. So just wanted to put that out there before anyone runs around talking about this. I'm just very grateful that I will not be contacted by the university. And lastly, this fun fact actually was quite fun for me because I'm positive I reviewed Lake Mungo before. Damn, I don't even know my own episodes. But the fun fact is that the director for Lake Mungo, who was also Australian, Joel Anderson, actually came back to the film industry after 16 years as a script editor for Late Night with the Devil. He's apparently known to be quite introverted and reclusive, so I thought this was really interesting. And so, getting into the themes, the theme I really want to talk about is late night TV. I know it's not really popular anymore, not like it used to when I was a kid growing up. It was certainly very weird, and a lot of us, like my old ass self, millennials and everybody else before me can recall that late night TV was just very odd. My favorite were, and this is not a late night TV show, but this was a commercial that a lot of people can remember, and that was the Ultimate Love Songs collections with Michael Bolton.
Imagine owning the world's greatest love songs. Time Life Music presents the Ultimate Love Songs collection.
But as you've already gathered, late night TV was something that you just had to be there for and experience it yourself. And it's really crazy to believe that there are generations after me who have never experienced this, so I'm incredibly lucky to have experienced something like this, and cursed. And since there are people who may be watching this and don't really know what it was or what it was like, I will explain it to you. Television as you know it and had its daytime broadcast with shows specific to the time of day, like morning shows, midday talk shows, news at the time, whatever time, 6, 7 p.m., 10 o'clock news, that kind of thing. Nighttime TV was no different. This eerie part of TV catered to night owls, those suffering from insomnia or sleep disorders, night shift workers, college kids, etc. Most people will recall nighttime TV to be odd, absurd, scary, and even inappropriate, but what you saw depended on what time, where you were watching from, and what channel. You were more likely to catch something very strange and unusual at maybe 10 o'clock at night than you would at 2 a.m. But again, it really depended on where you were watching from. I don't know, I guess I remember seeing a lot of Adult Swim stuff at 10 o'clock at night when I was like 5 years old. And it was stuff that I wasn't supposed to see, but I trusted 2 a.m. TV more than I did 10 p.m. And again, that was just me. That was my experience where I was watching from. For some reason, I caught Hello Kitty at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And I wish I was awake more often at that time to watch it. Speaking of time, I'd also like to clarify that this is a conversation surrounding U.S. TV broadcasts. For the sake of the conversation, I won't get into the history of nighttime TV, but something that a lot of people would understand and would really come to know and know where I'm getting to is late night TV shows. Some modern talk shows that a lot of us know are The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Conan O'Brien, Jay Leno, etc. A lot of late night talk shows included comedy bits, news coverage, celebrity interviews, and other entertainment bits. Since the mid-2010s, viewership for late night TV and late night talk shows started to decline. This has been a result of the use of streaming platforms, and so it has become increasingly expensive to produce these shows. Other things you would catch on nighttime TV would be stand-up comedy, film reviews, movies, comedy sketches, music videos, and of course, infomercials. For those of you who don't know what infomercials are, they are commercials, but they are demonstration-based performances, or they are formatted to aggressively sell something to their audience. And these products are then ordered by phone, typically, or ordering online when internet was a little more accessible. Infomercials in particular were very odd, from selling vacuums, jewelry, household products, cleaning supplies, fitness products, or even MLM services. Infomercials were about 30 minutes in length and were used as filler in between shows overnight. There was typically a sign-off between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. This was usually done as a result of technical constraints and later due to a lack of demand and viewership. A common sign-off was the Star-Spangled Banner and the test pattern. Last but not least, there was also adult entertainment on late-night TV. This adult entertainment was typically softcore in nature, but later became more explicit, graphic, and over the top over the years, depending on the service and the channel. A video that I have to recommend at this point is Farrell McGuire's The Horrors of Overnight TV. He goes into great detail about late night TV and just some of the weirdest stuff that you can see on TV. And this was stuff that was real. It was stuff that was allowed, like straight up adult entertainment, for example. In this video, he not only goes into great detail about the content of overnight TV, but he also touches on regulation and censorship. Nighttime TV was the Wild West in many ways. Unless you were tuned in consistently, you had no idea what was being shown overnight. You could catch the evening news about a gruesome murder in a neighboring town, someone selling you a hairdryer with the latest technology, a comedy sketch about a tyrannical president, a bit about a man with a pet alligator, or even an exorcism. There was something peculiar about late night TV. It just felt abnormal. Like you were watching something you weren't supposed to, or something that wasn't meant for everybody. But the way that I see it is that this was a corner of TV that, sure, maybe not everybody was privy to, but it explores a corner of the human nature, of human behavior, and only a small amount of people were more about it or were up at that time to see it and experience it. But like a lot of things, like horror, for example, it will catch some people's attention. Just wanted to expand on this a little bit. I want to clarify and add that there's nothing harmful, or not everything was harmful or weird, abnormal, unusual about late night TV. I'm sure that for a lot of people, their experience was mainly positive, or there was nothing that they could point out that spooked them or anything like that. I have certainly had my fair share of experiences that were also positive. Like I said about Hello Kitty at like 2, 3 in the morning. Was it odd to see it at 2, 3 in the morning? Most certainly, but it was just odd that it was on at that time of night or day, what have you. I would have rather seen that at 7 in the morning, right? That's perhaps what a lot of people's experience was with it. But on the other hand, for example, I remember watching, like I said earlier, Adult Swim sketches that really freaked me out. I'll never forget it. And really dependent on where you were, what channel you watched it on, what time, that kind of thing. Not everything was harmful or weird or any of that sort. But I do want to kind of make that connection that, like horror, it explores a different side of human nature, different perspective or darker perspectives. And there's nothing wrong with that either. There's an audience for everything, and that is also, in my opinion, a part of it. And I think that it's important to mention that moving forward. Tying all of this back to the film, Jack was pushed to be outlandish, to shock, provoke discourse, and of course boost ratings. Each segment was topped by something even more gruesome or shocking and more extreme to pull viewers in. All of this is consistent with the conversation regarding late night TV that proves true to this day, and that is that the darker, stranger, and suggestive it is, the more you want to watch because it satiates a dark part of you. However, it seems that for Jack, it didn't necessarily pay back, at least not right away. You catch glimpses of Jerry Springer, Maury type of action introduced as part of the show, theatrics, and an attempt to reel people in. It appears that his efforts weren't recognized right away, and his desire for success only grew stronger. The next theme I want to discuss is parapsychology. One of the, if not the biggest theme in the film is parapsychology. Before we define what it is, the main component of parapsychology is ESP, or extrasensory perception, otherwise commonly known as the sixth sense. Some examples of ESP are telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, and psychokinesis. I think the best source to define what this is the Parapsychological Association. Parapsychology is the scientific and scholarly study of three kinds of unusual events: ESP, mind-matter interaction, and survival, which are associated with human experience. The existence of these phenomena suggests that the strict subjective-objective dichotomy proposed by the old paradigm, see below, may not be quite so clear-cut as once thought. Instead, these phenomena may be part of a spectrum of what is possible, with some events and experiences occasionally falling between purely subjective and purely objective. We call such phenomena anomalous, because they are difficult to explain with current scientific models. Parapsychology only studies those anomalies that fall into one of three general categories: ESP, mind-matter interaction, previously known as psychokinesis, and phenomena suggestive of survival after bodily death, including near-death experiences, apparitions, and reincarnation. Most parapsychologists today expect that further research will eventually explain these anomalies in scientific terms, although it is not clear whether they can be fully understood without significant, some might say revolutionary, expansions of the current state of scientific knowledge. Other researchers take the stance that existing scientific models of perception and memory are adequate to explain some or all parapsychological phenomena." End quote. According to Britannica, research into parapsychology in the 20th century was conducted at some universities, but most notably Duke University under J.B. Rhine. Upon further research, it appears that Rhine was the person who founded parapsychology as a branch of psychology and wrote books such as Extrasensory Perception and Parapsychology, Frontier Science of the Mind. He is also known for his extensive research into ESP, most notably the use of Zener cards. These cards were named after perceptual psychologist Carl Zener. Zener cards were used to conduct experiments for ESP and developed in the early 30s. Zener cards are a deck made up of 25 cards, 5 of each symbol, a hollow circle, a plus sign, 3 vertical wavy lines, a hollow square, and a 5-pointed star. The experiment is done by having the experimenter use a shuffled deck, picking up a card, noting the symbol, and recording the answer of the person being tested, who would then guess which symbol of the 5 symbols is on the card. Another example that's been used lately are Ed and Lorraine Warren. Before anyone corrects me, parapsychology and demonology are not the same things, but they do overlap. Lorraine Warren, for example, professed that she was a clairvoyant, which is parapsychology as defined previously, and has helped her in her work. Most of you probably groaned as soon as I said that, and I'm sorry. But thanks to the new Conjuring movie, which I have my own opinion on as well. But anyway, you groaned, and I get it. And you're probably onto something. Their work was incredibly controversial and often the center of debate whether anything they did was credible or real at all. And I will leave it up to you to do the research on the couple. But as we all know, there is a dark history behind them. However, as I just mentioned, parapsychology is often the center of debate, and that is whether it is a credible branch of science, and if any practitioners or individuals who possess ESP are simply lying to you. This debate plays a big part in the film, and not only is it intriguing to watch, but it leaves the audience in a very vulnerable position. On one hand, most people are inclined to believe it's phony to modern science's standards, and is also supported by Haig's callous and aggressive attitude and his ego, but also his crazy bet, and that is a hefty check that is signed by him, ready to be cashed out by anyone who can prove him wrong. Fun fact, the person that Haig's character was based on actually did this, and no one had ever proven him wrong. On the other hand, based on what the audience is privy to, know exactly that these events are the exception. The next theme that we're about to discuss are deals with the devil and the price of success. This isn't a new concept. You want something so bad, every fiber of your being really wants it, and you are just willing to do anything to get whatever it is. Some people resort to making deals with the devil. There are a ton of theories that certain celebrities made a deal with the devil or sold their soul to the devil for fame, fortune, and success. For example, allegedly, and most famously, it is said that musician Robert Johnson was one of them. He was an American blues musician, particularly known in the 1930s. It is said that he was terrible and was asked to stop playing at first, but suddenly became amazing very quickly. The story goes that he went to a crossroads at Dockery Plantation with his guitar before midnight, where he began playing until the devil appeared, took the guitar, tuned it, played a few songs, and gave it back to him. It is said this was the deal, mastery of the instrument. His career gained traction rather quickly after this and was so good that people's mouths would drop after he played. He was just that good. It was noted that his songs after this had some dark undertones to them. He had songs titled Me and the Devil Blues, If I Had Possession Over Judgment Day, Hellhound on My Trail, and famously, Crossroad Blues. Many argue these themes of death and hell are not unusual in blues, that this wasn't out of the ordinary per se, but others believe that it added to the narrative of his occult activities. After he recorded all his songs with RCA Records, he died a year later in 1938, ending his 7-month-long career. The death certificate was found 30-some years later, stating no cause of death and that no autopsy had been performed. It's theorized that he died of untreated syphilis, but it is also theorized he was poisoned by the husband of a woman that Johnson flirted with at a show. 2 decades after his death, Columbia Records put out his album King of the Delta Blues, which solidified him as one of the greatest blues musicians of all time. He received many awards and accolades posthumously, but most notably, he was officially inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986. I highly recommend that you take some time to read into him and listen to his music as well. Either way, the poorly documented life of Robert Johnson certainly added to the mystery. I actually learned about Robert Johnson in college at a music class that I took. It was a pretty dark class, but it was amazing. It was fantastic. But that's how I learned about him, and it stuck with me ever since. Another musician was the talented Niccolò Paganini, violin virtuoso from Genoa, Italy. He was apparently a child prodigy where his teachers would pass him on to their teachers, and then those teachers would pass him on to their teachers. He was so talented that he was going on solo tours by the age of 15. He was a pioneer of his craft, and he was known not to use sheet music while he was playing, instead relying on pure memory to perform. An article by Classic FM titled Niccolò Paganini was such a gifted violinist, people thought he sold his soul to the devil, written by Maddie Shaw Roberts, states, Paganini was a striking man with hollow cheeks, pale skin, and thin lips. He was very tall and thin, and often dressed in black. He also had very long, thin fingers, and without the restriction of performing with sheet music, he flailed about on stage, earning him the nickname Rubber Man. It is now believed that Paganini's unusual finger length, which allowed him to play 3 octaves in one handspan, was due to Marfan syndrome, a genetic disorder. Equally, his ability to play at incredible speed could be attributed to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a disorder which causes increased flexibility and a lack of coordination. The violin was also regarded by some as the devil's instrument. So, all in all, it's not surprising that rumors about a deal with the devil started circulating. Some even thought Paganini could be the devil himself. One of the first rumors came out of a concert in Vienna, where one audience member said they thought they had seen the devil helping Paganini play. People soon began claiming to have doppelgangers of Paganini with horns and hooves. It was even said that the devil once made lightning strike the end of Paganini's bow during a performance, end quote. We learn in Late Night with the Devil that Jack Delroy was involved in some shady business with a group of elites who have a ton of resources and, I guess the key to their success and their fame and their fortune. And so with Jack Delroy being a part of this group, Jack Delroy is said to have made a deal with the devil. But I think what is also important to note here is not just the deal that you make with the devil, but it's the way that you make it, what you sacrifice, what you're willing to put yourself through or others in order for you to get what you really want. It's also in the way that you receive it. Jack Delroy, for example, only saw his success until the very end, unable to savor the fruits of his labor. You get what you want, but not in the way that you wanted it. And a key phrase that I mentioned is at the expense of other people, and in this case, it was the expense of his TV crew, but most importantly, his spouse. There was a video I watched recently about analyzing evil, and I will show it here on screen, and I will link it in the description as well. And this was a very thorough review that I think everybody should be watching as well, and goes into more detail about the occult and what Jack Delroy was dabbling into. And I think that's also incredibly important to talk about. But something that spoke out to me was that what Jack Delroy was experiencing, or what Jack Delroy did, was selfish, and that selfishness in itself is not evil. And I very much agree with that. But when you start to sacrifice everybody else, or when you start to sacrifice those around you, or when it starts to impede on everybody else, it's at the expense of others for what you want, I do think that is inherently evil. On the surface, it may look like Jack Delroy is a charismatic TV host who's just looking to do whatever he can to get his ratings up and to have a successful show and move forward after his wife's passing. But that couldn't be further from the truth. There is something underlying that only the viewer is able to catch a glimpse of. The next topic I want to discuss is found footage in general. So this was something that, and I'm going off script here, I didn't really have anything planned for this because I think it's important we y'all have to listen, my raw thoughts and all. But this was something I didn't see very often, but every now and then there were some people that I read comments of or read comments about the found footage aspect of it all. Some people were debating if this was found footage or not, which in my opinion, 100% it is, because you are privy to things that a lot of people are not, like the audience, and you have access to footage that others don't, like things going on in the background, behind the scenes, all of that. I think it's the format that confuses people, but in my honest opinion, my perspective, I don't think that's anything to detract you from. I think this was a very refreshing take on found footage in general, but I do believe that this does fit into the category of found footage film. I think what confuses people is the performance of it all, the TV, the stage, the lights, the crew members, the assistants, and I think that's what detracts people or confuses people into thinking that this isn't found footage. Like, there is some help, that this is it's not your traditional found footage format. And again, 100% I believe that it is. And I think that they have done this so beautifully, and it's just phenomenal in my opinion. And I think we do need to see a little bit more of it. Before we move forward with our pros and cons, I do want to mention some theories surrounding the film. One theory is about the skeleton guy in the audience and around the film. He is mainly seen at the beginning and the end. Most people will really see him in the beginning. They kind of put him on the spot briefly. But he also appears at the end during Jack's nightmare. Many people speculate that he's there to receive Jack, delivering their end of the bargain or guiding Jack through to what's about to happen. He didn't say a word at all throughout the entire film, but he is zoomed in on. You can see him at the end when the cult congregates around Jack, and overall is a figure that you just can't miss. And so knowing that there is some significant importance to his character that is only implied. Someone had also pointed out that the nickname Minnie is short for the name Minerva, who happens to be the Roman goddess of knowledge whose symbol was an owl, which the owl was a symbol for the cult. Now we can get on to the pros of the film, and that certainly calls for another sip of my wine. Also, I don't know if anyone's noticed, I tried to do the whole 70s makeup thing and I failed. The only thing that's 70s about it is the shimmer right here on my eyelid. But I love my winged eyeliner too much. I can't let it go and I can't do makeup. So, I mean, this is what we're working with. But for those of you that noticed, thank you. And so starting with my pros, I want to begin by talking about the format. And we just kind of talked about that, but I didn't talk about how it really benefits and supports the film. Like I said, you are, as a viewer, are privy to the broadcast and behind the scenes. It feels like archived footage. This really worked in their favor by shifting perspectives rather seamlessly. This helped guide the viewer without the mental exhaustion of stopping, starting, stopping, starting. Not to mention that TV works this way exactly. It's its job. That also ties into my next pro, which is the production of it all. And that was the way that it was shot and its aspect ratio, which I don't know a whole lot about it, but apparently the aspect ratio was a huge part of it all because certain scenes, like behind the scenes, were shot differently to distinguish from the broadcast. So you know which was the broadcast, which were behind the scenes, or things that you weren't supposed to see and what you were. All in all, I think that the format really benefited the film because you were able to get two things at once. You were able to see the thing that was supposed to be, quote unquote, but also what was not supposed to happen or what only few people like the TV crew were supposed to see. And again, this kind of ties into the perspective that only the audience members are able to see and just puts you in a really interesting position to see both of them at the same time. This also ties into my pro about its story, and it's very well paced and very fluid as well. I thought that it was just in succession. It just kept going, bam, 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 just keep going. And I thought that was amazing. There was no filler between anything at all. I thought everything was important and it helped speed the story up as well. And this also helped build its suspense. Cuts and transitions is also my next pro, part of the production and the format. This is very seamless. The camera still follows everyone consistently. And also with the whole TV format thing, you were able to capture some authentic moments. And I think that they really nailed this too. Like when you have talk shows like Oprah and, whatever, there are moments where the audience talks back to you or the audience has a moment to talk to you and interact with the host or any of the guests. And you were able to see that in the film. Like in the beginning, when Jack walks on stage, he talks a little bit about what's going on, voicing his gratitude and support for everyone.
Especially the bad. It was your support that brought me back into this very studio a year ago when I could have easily thrown in the towel, when many suggested that I should have thrown in the towel.
During this time, and someone shouts, "We love you, Jack." And you see that moment of authenticity. You see something, again, that's you're not really supposed to see. He was breaking character briefly, Jack was, and you see he was getting emotional. The crowd or the audience was clapping and cheering, and I thought that was a very important moment, or there were other important moments like that throughout the film that I think really supported just that whole, the whole thing, the whole moment, it's as if you were really there or you were actually watching this TV show. And I think these moments are often taken for granted, or that it's just not. I just think that there needs to be more attention to it. Phenomenal acting is my next pro. It just goes without saying, Desmalchian was phenomenal. He was fantastic, and so were the rest of the cast members. Everybody had a great part. Everyone was phenomenal in what they were doing, and I think that everybody had their own specific role. No one was blurred. I think that everyone was equally important. I also want to mention that Haig, Gus, and June's characters are grounding characters, but and this is important because Jack is at the center of it all, but these characters were the ones who were, giving some resistance, or were there as resistance to his character and everything that he did. And I think that was really important, how all of them played a part of it. But I want to pay special attention to Haig. I thought that he was the most outspoken critic of the entire film, and just the nature of his character, I think, just really helped build that resistance to not just Jack's character, but just the overall story in general. It's like, hey, you know what? Maybe he is right. All this is so phony and fake, and there is something to it. And I think that, once again, I think the viewer's like, yeah, he is right, but I want to keep seeing where this is going. Last but not least, my next pro is that there are no loose ends. It ties up just so nicely. There is nothing left to go back and revisit. This is it. Nothing else. I would be very shocked to hear that there was going to be a Late Night with the Devil 2, as it continues with this particular story. And I probably wouldn't watch it if so. But overall, I think that it did a very great job, or very good job, with wrapping it all up nicely. All the loose ends were tied up. And now for my cons. My first one is the use of CGI. I'm never against the use of CGI, but like anything, I prefer it's tasteful. I did think it was a little over the top and certainly overshadowed its message at the end. I also thought that after going through the entire movie without it, or with very minimal use, it was out of place when it was used. I'm no expert on any of that, really. And rarely has there been a time where it has bothered me, or where I thought it was too much, especially for fantasy-centered films, for example. Did this in particular bother me to the point where it derailed the entire movie for me? Absolutely not. Did it bother me enough to mention it? Yes, it did. It's not awful. It's just out of place, personally, in comparison to everything else. My last con is not really a con, it's more just addressing something, and I want to address the unsatisfying ending that some comments were saying, or that there were some comments floating around regarding that. I personally did not agree with it. I can see why people would say that, but I think it really depended on your attention to detail and your own interpretation when you first watch it. I do think that there is a lot of detail, and maybe for some people it is a lot to keep up with, especially with how fast the story may be going. But overall, I don't think that it's unsatisfying. I think that the answers were there the whole time. And for some people, it can be a con. I totally understand that. Not for me personally. My overall rating for Late Night with the Devil is a 9.5 out of 10. Late Night with the Devil is a film that commands your attention by relying on suspense rather than jump scares, and one with enough detail to keep you stimulated rather than overwhelmed. Its TV format helps character presentation, and the found footage aspect gives insight to each character, all in their raw, rugged, and vulnerable selves. You see two performances in one by every single actor, and two sides to every beautifully curated, relatable character. Desmalchian gives birth to a charismatic TV host, provides a window to evil on a whole new scale, and even more memorable in the horror world as an icon. Jack Delroy is the perfect example of the saying, "Be careful what you wish for, you just might get it." He is the embodiment of ravenous hunger for fame and success, constantly pushing the boundaries at the expense of his audience, his colleagues, and even his spouse. But even then it wasn't enough. Growing his greed to biblical proportions and stopping at nothing to get what he wants and what he perceives he deserves. With foreshadowing all around the film, such as Haig's comment to turning off your TV sets, the film is tactful in preparing you without giving too much away, gently leading the viewer while also ensuring that you're enjoying the ride. The gore in the film is tasteful, in my opinion, enough to send a message, but not enough to scare people away. Late Night with the Devil is a multi-layered film that does not skip a beat, including many familiar themes such as the occult and parapsychology, and a refreshing twist that brings in a younger audience while also locking in the seasoned horror fan. You bear witness to something that you're not supposed to see, from awkward moments, crazy behavior, bodily fluids, odd topics, dead air, all abnormal stuff. And it makes it very uncomfortable for audience members on film, and even for the viewer at home. I highly recommend that you watch this alone or with another person to fully immerse yourself in the chaos. This is not for a group setting, so that you can pay close attention and not miss any details. I did watch this film in theaters, like I said. I watched it that weekend that it came out. I also did watch this on Shudder a few times. It may still be available there, but most recently on DVD. I had to have it because you absolutely need to have a copy too. You are able to watch this on most streaming platforms. I do hope that you found tonight's episode delightfully dreadful, but I do want to know, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did you buy into the hype? Did you not? I want to know. I thought that this was also particularly fitting because Halloween is coming up, and you know what? Maybe I should have uploaded this on October 31st. Damn it. But all in all, you all understand how much I love this film. I respect it. I think it was great. The use of AI, sorry, yeah, that sucks. But overall, the film in general is phenomenal. It's fantastic. It's one of my top movies, if not the top movie of 2024 in the horror sphere. I thought it was phenomenal. I recommend everybody to watch it, especially if you love the occult and parapsychology and that whole realm. Don't ghost me, and make sure that you subscribe to Gore and Grapes here right on YouTube, and follow me on all of my socials as well. I try to be a little more active on there so you can see me a little bit more often, and you also get some sneak peeks as to the hints of the next film that I'll be reviewing, or this one, what have you. But you are privy to a lot of things that the general public does not have access to. So if you want to know what's going on, follow me and you will not be disappointed. I do also want to mention that not only do I have more episodes coming out for this season, but I also have a guest that we will be having on the podcast. I will let you know once that's happening, but it's going to be a great one. Again, thank you so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Goodbye.